Well, look who's back. It's your boy, Daniel Dragonstaff, and I'm probably gonna make some enemies with this video, but that's alright. I wanted to talk about the 5 main reasons why I left the flow arts community. For those of you who do not know me, hi, my name's Daniel, and I've been playing with this prop here called a Dragonstaff for almost 9 years now. I spent the first year to 14 months just kind of doing it on my own. I spent the next couple years after that going to things called flow festivals, which are basically festivals where people gather to play with their props and play with fire and take workshops and learn from each other and all that fun stuff. And then I probably spent the next 4-ish years after that teaching and performing at flow festivals and music festivals, and I've spent the last year or so not doing any of that except for doing what I was doing during that first year or so, just playing with Dragonstaff by myself mostly. And so I wanted to talk about how I kind of came full circle here and why I no longer am a part of the flow community and no longer wish to be a part of the flow community. So first thing I want to say is when I talk, especially in these types of videos, I tend to make a lot of generalizations. So please know that if I say like the community or the scene, of course, I do not mean everyone. I think that most of the people that I've met in the flow community and at these festivals have actually been really great people. Even if I do feel like it's a majority, there's always exceptions to the rule. So I just wanted to put that out there before we get started. And these are going to be 5 kind of broad reasons why I left the flow community, and I'll give some specific examples and things that I went to for each of the 5 major reasons. And I also want to mention that these are in no particular order. With all that out of the way, let's get into this. So reason number 1 why I left the flow community is that there is a lack of transparency and an abundance of deception, specifically in the flow community on social media like Facebook and Instagram, and in the flow community at most of the major flow festivals. Most of these flow festivals often float around the idea that they do not make a profit or even lose money in some cases by putting on these events. And they are also very, for the most part, unwilling to reveal any type of spreadsheet with a list of expenses and profits. And for someone who has gone to school for business and written business plans, that's kind of the bare minimum that you need to do. And if they aren't making a profit in any kind of way, I don't understand how they could be putting on the events for 20 plus years or something like that, at least for some of the Flow Arts Institute or FAI flow festivals. And for anybody that I've talked to who's just kind of ran the numbers, doing some rough, generous estimates, everybody, including myself, has come to the conclusion that they are definitely making a profit. And to be clear, I have no issue with them making a profit. I actually want them to make a profit if I want them to continue to exist and to put on these events. Where it becomes deceptive is when they float around the idea that they don't make a profit and then they run the entire event, almost the entire event, off of volunteers, from the parking coordinators to the fire safeties to the teachers and performers that tickets are being sold off of. Almost the entire event is run off of volunteer work, which is also unpaid labor. And if people knew that you were making a profit and how much profit you were making, they may be less likely to perform these duties unpaid, So I think that is very deceptive of them. But wait, because there are more ways that I feel like they are very deceptive. I think that the ways that they go about choosing instructors and performers for the events is also very deceptive. And if anything, they don't really give you any criteria to go off of at all. So you don't really know how instructors or performers are being chosen. I have spoken to some festival organizers and asked them how they go about choosing instructors. And some of the answers that I got was that it was based off of social media followings. This brings me to another point of deception in the flow arts community, because I do know of at least one person for sure in the flow arts community who has bought a whole lot of Instagram followers. So now if they're basing who they choose as an instructor off of social media following, that's not really going to be reflective of this person and their skills or their ability to teach. Another way that I feel like these festivals are deceptive are how they go about choosing who they actually compensate for their work, because some instructors do get compensated, and many have spoken up and said, hey, I got compensated. And I'm like, that's awesome. But then why was mine denied? And why was other people's denied? And in some cases, I do have a bigger following than them online, more years of teaching experience, more workshops to offer, as in the amount of workshops to offer, as well as a diverse range of workshops from different props to teaching yoga. Side note, I am also a registered yoga instructor, and I could never seem to get a stipend from any of these places, even to cover my travel. So I think that they should be more transparent about not only how they choose instructors, but how they choose who actually receives a stipend. Because from the situations that I've seen, it seems like it's who's friends with or even partners with some of the organizers and the people who get to make these decisions. One last deceptive quality that I've seen in some flow artists, specifically on social media, is offering up the information that they are full-time flow artists. I don't know what that actually means. I don't know if that means you do it 40 hours a week. I don't know if that means you pay all of your bills off of it. But what I do know is one person specifically who often volunteers that information online that they are a full-time flow artist. When I met them in person, they volunteered the information that they actually work another job. And I'm not gonna get into the who's and the what's, but it was just, it really put a bad taste in my mouth about this person, because it just showed me that they were very deceptive. Because now I'm thinking, why do you always say online that you're a full-time flow artist, but now you're telling me you have another job? So now I'm just back to wondering, what does being a full-time flow artist even mean? And there are other ways that I feel like the flow community at festivals and online can be very deceptive, but those are just some of the main ones that I wanted to touch on. Reason number 2 why I left the flow community, and this one is definitely very subjective, but I've noticed a lack of innovation and a loss of novelty. Like I said, very subjective, but I have seen almost no innovation in the time that I've been in flow arts and going to festivals, and the way that these festivals are put on. I have a lot of ideas, but I'm not giving those up for free. But I think that festivals should definitely take some risks and switch up the formula a little bit. Also, again, this is very subjective, but at least the last gala performance that I went to, gala show, whatever you want to call it, I always walk away from those feeling so inspired to create a new routine or something. And this one, I felt the opposite. I felt like, how do I put this nicely? I felt like I was obligated to clap because they would drop their prop 10 plus times in their act. And we all drop our props sometimes, but if you're dropping your prop 10, 12 plus times in your act, that might be a sign that you need to either work on the routine a little bit more, or maybe replace that trick with something that you have a higher success rate of landing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Also, for me, as somebody who mainly spins Dragon Staff, I've noticed, how do I put this? Not just a lack of innovation, but almost a devolving of Dragon Staff designs, and specifically the mechanism used to attach the Dragon Staff head to the staves and make sure that they don't fly off. I'm not going to get into specifics with nerdy Dragon Staff stuff with you guys here right now, as much as I would love to do that. But yeah, I just feel like the very first Dragon Staff heads I bought, those red spirals, kind of nailed it, and then Ninja Pirate also nailed it, but every other Dragon Staff I've tried other than those two, they don't stay on for me. So the lack of innovation is definitely a bit of a downer for me, and the lack of novelty, I don't see a whole lot of new tricks anymore, or things that I haven't seen already. In the way that routines are put together, in the way that workshops are put together, the way that festivals are put together. It just feels very stale to me, and there's people that have been a part of it for much longer than me, so I don't know if maybe they've seen a change and that's why they stay, or maybe I just don't have as much patience for just repeating the same thing, what feels like the same experiences at the same festival, at the same place, year after year after year. I kind of want something different, or at least a change in the formula of the festivals. Oh boy, reason number 3 why I left the flow community. This is where I'm probably gonna lose some people, but these are the 5 reasons why I left the flow community, so it's okay if you don't agree. There is a lack of diversity in the flow community, and I'm not talking about the kind of diversity that people often mean when they talk about diversity on the internet. In the flow community, there's a lack of diversity of thought, of intellectual diversity, of political diversity, even a diversity of opinions. From what I've seen, the flow community does not like that. And there's so many examples that I could give, but I don't want to get into people's business too much, but I will bring up one incident because I thought it was crazy, and this person's very well known. I don't know them personally, but most of us who are into fire dancing, we know Grace Good. So at one point I joined this group on Facebook that was essentially a dedicated flow drama group, and you could argue that every flow group is a flow drama group, but this one was specifically centered around tea. And there was a post with a lot of interaction and a lot of support calling for people to cancel Grace Good. Why? Because her dad, this is from what I gathered from reading all these comments on this thread. Apparently her dad, or at least one of her parents, is a Trump supporter. I know, I'm not supposed to say that word or talk politics, but we're getting real here. And she's friends with her parent on Facebook. So clearly she should be canceled for that. And that was kind of just a big one for me, where I was like, okay, now we're just getting silly, guys. We have to be a little more accepting of people and whatever they believe, especially politically right now. I know that's popular and I'm gonna lose a lot of people, but just walk with me for a second. From what I've noticed in the flow community is that they like to have an appearance of diversity, and they're very accepting as long as you go along with and believe every single thing they do. And I think most of us know it's very rare, if not non-existent, to find somebody who agrees with you on every single thing, on every single issue. So yeah, I'm definitely not in favor of going around canceling people for their political beliefs or affiliations, because trust me, in the floor arts community, there is a lot of that, and there's a lot of people that take a strong stance on either side and are very vocal about it. And I never went and tried to cancel anybody for it, let alone for being friends with their parent on social media who's a supporter of, the T word. Um, so yeah, that's just something that I've noticed. And side note, I actually did briefly meet Grace Good at a festival, and she was super nice. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I know her personally or anything like that. This was just a long thread that I seen on this T group and was like, wow, guys, really, like, this is too far, too far. Another type of diversity that the flow arts community lacks is financial diversity. To really last in the flow community long term, you kind of have to be at a specific financial class. You have to be able to afford to not just take time off of work so you're losing money there. You also have to be able to afford to spend money to get to the festival, buy the ticket, your camping gear, your food, your fuel. Not to mention being a flow artist in general, you're paying for expensive props and probably some fun clothes and things like that. And then to top it all off, there's a good chance that even if you get to a level where you're teaching or performing at these events that you're paying to get to, you're still not going to be getting paid. You're still going to be doing it all unpaid. So it really creates an environment that encourages people that are from a specific financial class, because if you weren't in that class or if you were below that class, like many people that I know, you definitely can't afford to take time off work, spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars to go to a festival where there is essentially little to no chance that you will see any type of return, at least from these events. Reason number 4 why I left the flow community, and this is probably one of the biggest ones for me and the one that had the biggest impact on me and had to really make me ask myself if I wanted to continue being a part of this community. And that is, there is a major lack of ethics, or at least a lack of shared ethics in the flow community. And I know a lot of us identify ourselves as being a part of the flow community. So please don't take this personal, because this might not include you. Like I said, I think most of the people I've met and interacted with at flow festivals and online have been really kind, but unfortunately, sometimes a few bad apples can kind of ruin the whole batch. And so these are some things that I specifically experienced, and I got receipts of most, if not all of it as well, if I wanted to go that route, but I'm trying not to go that route. But yeah, I just wanted to be clear that don't take this as I'm saying every single person in the community is like this. Only some specific people that I had the unfortunate experience of interacting with. So as I have mentioned before, I'm going to try to be as brief about these examples as possible, but as some of you have heard me mention before, I've had a workshop that I taught someone. They ended up stealing it, copying the workshop word for word, start to finish, trick for trick, and teaching it as their own. And then also to circle back to one of the other reasons I gave, the lack of transparency and abundance of deception, all of those examples kind of factor into the lack of ethics with the way that these festivals operate and how they go about who they pay to teach and perform, and how they go about running these festivals off of unpaid labor. These are just all things that I find unethical. And the last reason why I left the flow community is that there is an overall lack of direction, and that can be applied to so many different aspects of the flow community. When I first got into flow arts, I kind of looked around and noticed there's not a lot of older people that are doing this, right? And of course, there's exceptions to every rule. There are some out there, but generally speaking, more of a younger person's thing. And I thought about why that was, and maybe I'm just an asshole, but I thought it was because maybe these people aren't taking the best care of themselves, you know? Maybe it's because they're abusing substances and not exercising or eating healthy or doing yoga or things like that. And then not to mention the wear and tear on your body from spinning props and going to festivals and essentially camping out all the time. A lot of people suffer from the lack of income and end up living out of their cars and things like that as well. So I thought, maybe kind of just not taking care of your body and your life situation could cause people to burn out and not last in it. But now that I've been in the community and doing it for almost a decade, I definitely see other reasons why people as they get older would likely leave this community or this art form altogether. To be blunt, there is not a lot of ways or opportunities for flow artists or fire performers to make a living. There are some, and some people do it, but they are few and far between. They are the exceptions to the rule, and it's very difficult to pull off, which is why I feel so much that the way that music festivals operate is people buy tickets to see, generally speaking, people buy tickets to see artists that they like. And that's how they make their money, and that's why they pay those artists well, because that's how they're selling tickets. Flow festivals, it's kind of flipped on its head. I personally have never bought a ticket to a flow festival because of the music lineup. I have bought tickets to flow festivals because of who was on the instructor lineup. So that would lead me to believe that they would compensate the instructors the same way that music festivals compensate music artists. But it's very much not the case. And I think that if flow festivals were structured in that way, it would lead to people having more longevity in the scene and in the art form, because there's actually a future there. And maybe instead of, losing money to take time off work and then go somewhere where they're going to lose even more money at the event, if they saw that they could actually go and gain a couple $100 instead of lose however many hundreds of dollars, that's a reason for people to not just completely burn out and leave the scene altogether. What I have noticed from the people that are, a little on the older side that are still a part of the community, most of them are making bread some way at the festival, whether they're up there in the organizers or they're vending or some other way, or maybe they have an inn and they're friends with one of the organizers, so they always get their stipend every single year. I don't know what the case is, but that's just what I've noticed is most of the people that are on the older end of the ratio of ages that are at flow festivals tend to be making some kind of income there. So I don't think it's too unreasonable for that to be a goal or something to achieve if you've put in enough time in flow arts and you've worked your way up and you've gained experience and you've put in a lot of time and work, and now you're there and you're teaching or performing or wherever you end up being. I don't think it's asking too much for festivals to compensate the people whose tickets their names are being sold off of. But yeah, that's all just one aspect of there not being too much of a future in flow arts and fire dancing. So to kind of bundle up some of these reasons and to make where I'm coming from a little bit more clear is basically where you're put in a position where the festivals are profiting off of your name being on the lineup, but you're not being compensated in any kind of way from them. And then people who are attending your workshops or watching your routines are then taking your workshops or routines and offering them up as their own and making profit while you are not. It doesn't really make you want to be there anymore, you know? So yeah, that is the 5 major reasons why I left the flow community. The last flow festival I went to, Flame 2024, I told people beforehand that it was going to be my last FAI festival, but I knew deep down it was going to be my last flow festival, at least for the foreseeable future. And I took some time after that festival, about a year actually, and kind of throughout that year playing with not doing flow arts or spinning dragon staff at all, or do I want to go all in again, or kind of how do I want to navigate this? Take some time away, rejuvenate, kind of clear my mind, and reapproach this whole thing. And what I found was that I could not stop spinning dragon staff even if I tried. I did not see any incentive to be back going to flow festivals or teaching or performing at them. I saw very little incentive to be back on social media. Really, the only incentive is to connect with the homies. But I see a lot of incentive to continue to spin dragon staff, just like I was in that first 12 to 14 months when I first got the prop. Just enjoying it for myself, taking it out to the park or on a hike or to the backyard or whatever, and just having a good time. Not worrying about setting up a video, not worrying about capturing something to show to people online, not worrying about what I'm going to do in the fire circle or putting together an act for this festival or coming up with a new workshop or anything like that. I just get to do the fun part now without all the drama and all the shadiness and all the bullshit. So that is that. Those are my 5 major reasons why I left the flow community. If you're still here listening, thank you for still being here. I really appreciate you watching. I appreciate y'all who are still supporting me through this weird and crazy journey that I've been on with flow arts and fire dancing.